Hello, BookTube, and welcome to another Irish Stew video where we talk about a whole bunch of things, not just books and reading and writing and whatnot, where I just unload some of my thoughts on current news or current extraterrestrial news. When I started doing these, I thought you'd find them a little tedious, but the overwhelming majority of you like them enough to want me to keep doing them. So we'll do a few more Irish Stew videos in 2025, and boy oh boy, today I am reminded that sometimes Irish Stew videos are more of a boon to me than they are to you. Today I am reminded that sometimes just talking to you in general is more of a boon to me than it is to you. I think that's true most of the time. As I've said for years now, I get a lot more out of your company than you get out of mine. But today, especially so. As we will almost certainly get to in the me portion of the show at the end. Because we do these things in brackets. We start with the world, and then the US, and then broader YouTube, and then BookTube, and then finally me. And I think the BookTube section of this video will probably be longer than usual because BookTube brings me joy. BookTube is a joyful thing. And I'm going to want some of that in this video. So we can go through the world section and the US section pretty quickly. In the world section, this is something that I predicted, but more importantly, this is something of dire international consequences, as I have pointed out many times. The Trump regime has committed another act of piracy on the open ocean. They have seized another oil tanker. I don't like the word seized because it sounds like a law enforcement thing. This is simple piracy. This is simple theft and also murder, which again is not being mentioned in the mainstream fascist-friendly press. They aren't even mentioning it. Like the crews of these tankers are, I don't know, being given an all-expense-paid trip to Antigua. They're being murdered. Their bodies are being dumped overboard by U.S. service people, simply executing them. That happened in the first one. There are no survivors of the crew of the first tanker, and now there's a second tanker, which was taken as an act of piracy in Venezuelan waters, but it is under the flag of China. And this has already caused international outrage as it begins to dawn on all the nations of the world, the good nations and the bad nations, that the United States is now not only a rogue power, but the most powerful, most dangerous rogue power in the history of the world. Deciding on a given day, for a given set of random reasons, to kill you if you're on the open ocean, to take your property if you're on the open ocean, to commit piracy, to commit murder, to commit kidnapping, just because we can. The other nations of the world, including some of the world's other superpowers, are starting to notice that this is the case. Of course, it is intolerable. If that is the case, that is intolerable. That is an intolerable international situation. The last 3 large-scale wars and the last 2 world wars were caused by exactly that. Regardless of whatever might have happened on the streets of Sarajevo, they were mostly caused by exactly that. You cannot declare the open ocean a free Caesar zone. You cannot do that. If a nation goes rogue, that starts the dominoes falling. So that's in the news for today. And that's in the world news. And in the U.S. news, we get the reason why that happened. It isn't just greed for money and oil, which the Trump regime has in bottomless amounts, but also, believe it or not, war, piracy, murder. A crew of 200 people on that tanker. They're all as dead as the first crew. All of this to distract from the Epstein files, which is the U.S. subject. The Trump department, the Trump regime, under law, had to release the Epstein files yesterday. It did not. And it is continuing not to. And that is, so today we're getting the Epstein files fallout. The Trump regime, for instance, is in that combination of dumb cleverness and also mean-spirited vindictiveness, the kind of thing that the class bully will say when he can't just punch his teacher. It's snide, but it's also stupid. The Trump regime has started issuing dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of pages that are all black. So it's not a word redacted here or there. It's just a black page with the header on top, but otherwise the page completely black. No one finds that funny. No one finds that clever. That is illegal. You're supposed to release these files en toto yesterday. Not nothing. Not black pages. Black pages are not the Epstein files. The first bit of fallout for that is that there's talk in Washington of drawing up articles of impeachment for Pam Bondi. I do not understand this at all. I don't think it will happen, and of course it won't go anywhere. But I don't understand it because this is... I don't understand why the articles of impeachment aren't for Donald Trump. I don't understand that. Raping girls and being an active business partner in an international arrangement to traffic raped girls is not, under any interpretation, an act covered by the Trump court's decision that anything Trump does in his official capacity as president is immune from prosecution or investigation. Obviously, being a gigantic sex trafficker for 20 years is not part of anybody's official duties. So I don't know why it is that he is not the subject of impeachment proceedings, even if they go nowhere. As it is, nothing will happen anyway. The Congress is not in session, and when they are in session next month, well, what will they do? What can they do? They'll call on Pam Bondi to appear before them. They'll subpoena her. She'll refuse to do it. And refusing a congressional subpoena is against the law. Steve Bannon went to jail for it, but he was pardoned. Same thing will happen with her. There isn't any way to make this stick. The point that so a lot of that talk is pointless. The main thing that I want to point out here is obvious. Of course, it's been obvious for years, which is that this is not the behavior of an innocent man. The reason why I think Trump should be impeached instead of Pam Bondi or anybody else is because Pam Bondi literally doesn't have a meal or a bowel movement without checking with Donald Trump if it's okay. She is hollow. She is completely hollow. She is simply an extension of his will. She has no personal identity of her own. So it was his decision. Every little detail of this has been his decision, his personal decision, usually delivered verbally. He can't really write. And he can't really concentrate. So it's been mainly his personal decision delivered verbally. So it should be him who's impeached. But the main thing that I want to point out, since impeachment is really pointless, is that at least we can all agree this is the behavior of a guilty man. It doesn't get any more self-incriminating than this. So we'll leave the U.S. portion at that. The Trump regime, in this as in every other way, and everything, literally everything that it's done since it took office 8 months ago, the Trump regime here is in flat-out black-letter law violation of the law. They are breaking the law that Trump signed. So we move on to YouTube, and YouTube. It's going to be Bigfoot again. I'm sorry, but it is. I wanted to lighten the mood, and I have a deep desire for Bigfoot to be true. It's almost certainly impossible that there is a large species of man-like hominid that is living in the world along with us. That's almost certainly impossible. Thousands of people go into every inch of the backcountry every year, all of them carrying high-definition phones. There are drones with heat sensors. There is satellite footage that can read the face of a coin from orbit. And there's no sign of these things at all. There's all sorts of fake evidence, all sorts of obviously staged, blurry stuff. Little clips that are on channels like the one I showed you, Maximum Fear. I often watch his channel. The key when you're watching any kind of Bigfoot clip that is purported to have taken place in the last year, which his channel is full of clips that are supposed to be new. The key when you're watching any clip like that is not to look for how clear the Bigfoot in the video will be. The Bigfoot will not be clear. If it were clearly something that isn't a human in a suit, the whole world would be changed. No one would be talking about anything else, even the Epstein files, even war. To learn that we have somehow failed to kill all other hominid species, that there's another hominid species living on the planet with us, would be the biggest news story of all time. So the Bigfoot in question is never going to be clear. If it were even once not a person in a costume, then you would know. But it's not a question of whether or not the Bigfoot in the footage is blurry. When you're watching a piece of footage, the key question to ask yourself is, why does it end when it does? That gives it away. Every single time, that gives it away. Why does it end when it does? You have people who are willing to dive into sewage on camera for their 5 minutes of digital online fame. You have people who are willing to die for digital online fame. So the idea that something huge and hairy in the woods turns towards you and then starts to run towards you, and suddenly you lose your cookies and run, instead of continuing to film, you will notice in every Bigfoot clip that you see that one additional second of film would settle things completely. One additional second. And you will never get that second because they're all fake. But nevertheless, there's a channel called Wildman of the Woods, and they did a video on a particular kind of Sasquatch. Kind of Sasquatch that doesn't get as much attention as the big hulking one in the Pacific Northwest. And that is the Florida Skunk Ape. Florida has its own Bigfoot. Most localities have their own Bigfoot of one kind or another. And Florida has one. Obviously, famously, there are 2 photographs that allege to show this thing. However, there's a gigantic plant covering 90% of the thing in the photo, in both photos. And the person who took the photos, we don't know who they are. They sent them with a letter to a newspaper editor in Florida. They took photo number 1 and they took photo number 2, and they had a camera in their hands, and they did not take photo number 3. Because photo number 3 happens a second after photo number 2. And photo number 3 would show the animal standing up away from the foliage so that it could be clearly seen. And you will never get that. Never. You will never get that. Whether it's a photograph or video, you will never get that. So, but that gave enormous fuel to the Florida Skunk Ape thing. And so they did, Wildman of the Woods did a nice video on the Florida Skunk Ape. Of course, it may be curious for you. It may be curious, if some of you are in Florida, did you grow up with any kind of folklore about the Florida Skunk Ape or whatnot? The Florida Skunk Ape is aided, the myth is aided by impenetrable tropical jungles, by impenetrable wilderness, or seemingly impenetrable wilderness. It's not impenetrable. I have penetrated it, so plenty of people do it for a living. And another thing penetrates it on a regular basis, and that is deadly hurricanes. And you might say, well, these things are extra smart, and they're a lot smarter than a normal ape. They know what humans are, and they like to avoid them. But you can be as smart as Albert Einstein. That's not going to stop your dead, drowned body from washing into the levee, and none ever have. But I'm still curious to know what you think of this. There's no clear footage, and everybody's out there with cameras. Another absolute drop-down disapproval for me is that I have been to these places. All the hotspots. I have been to all of these places. Deep, deep inside them. Days from the last sight of any human being. And in most cases, I have been there with dogs who have far greater senses than I do. Never any hint of anything. Never any hint. When we were up in the Pacific Northwest and Western Canada, never any hint of anything that wasn't a bear. Of anything that wasn't a bear. Plenty of hints of bears, but never anything other than that. Same thing with the Florida Everglades, the Florida wetlands. So I'd be curious to know what you think, but I'll leave a link to the video because it's fun to think about it anyway. It's fun to think about it anyway. I don't believe that Florida's ecosystem could support an animal this big. And keep in mind, we're not talking about an animal. We're talking about a breeding population of animals. That's a lot. So, but that's YouTube. And now we can move on to BookTube, where I get so much joy, where I get so much that turns around my rotten afternoon. And we can start with the Bookworm. I feel like I owe him a shout out because the last time I shouted out a video of his, it wasn't there when I went looking for it, so I couldn't link you to anything. But he did a video in which he on the importance of reading and the importance of developing good habits for reading, how you can read more in your day. These are fairly well known. There's only a limited number of them, and they're fairly well known. They all work. It's not a question of whether or not you know them. It's a question of whether or not you have the will to do them. Which, again, I realize I'm largely preaching to the converted, but some people want to know what's the magic solution for how you read 100 pages a day. And when you tell them the magic solution, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to know that it involves putting down your Xbox or putting down your doom scrolling and actually reading 100 pages a day. The same thing with people who are overweight and want to know about the latest miracle diet that isn't Ozempic. And they ask you, what's the latest miracle diet? And you tell them, well, there isn't any such thing as a miracle diet. You lose weight by being in a caloric deficit. And that means having the willpower to eat less. They're not interested in that. Same thing with people who want to ask, well, how do I find more time to read? I love reading. I just love it. But they aren't willing to do that. The Bookworm, he makes a point of the fact that he still has things to say about this, even though he is very young. He is one of our youngest booktubers. He's 10 years younger than I am. When he's in the course of, I'll leave a link to his video, and this time I'm trusting that the video will be there. When he's talking about, no matter how busy you are, you can find time to read, he finds a video clip of a famous person saying exactly that, admonishing his audience that if you think you're too busy to read, you are wrong. Because I'm busier than you are, and I find time to read. And that famous person is Charlie Kirk. The Bookworm actually finds a quote from Charlie Kirk that I agree with. I wouldn't have thought it possible. And give credit where it's due. What Charlie Kirk says in that video is absolutely correct. So I will leave a link to the Bookworm's video. What else we got for BookTube? Thoughts on Tomes. Thoughts on Tomes did a great little ranty video about the world domination of romantasy, how it has taken over the publishing industry like kudzu, and her thoughts on it. Her channel's wonderful anyway, but it's all wonderful to listen to. I wonder what your thoughts on it will be. I think some of you probably have read romantasy and kind of liked it. I mean, its popularity doesn't come out of nowhere, right? Then we can talk about Drunzo. Young Drunzo has joined a couple of other BookTube channels in trying to entice me to do a library book tour of my own, to do a bookshelf tour and census, book by book, shelf by shelf, adding up the numbers in an epic fashion to cover the whole of the place. And Drunzo did it by doing a bookshelf tour of his own. I'll leave a link to it down below. It will be a source of great joy to all the Drunzoids out there who absolutely love him and dote on his every word. And then there's the Literary Buffet, who did a video about his holiday reading and maybe projecting into the next year, and his adorable dog was asleep right next to him. And he visually reminded me, of course, that you are not a real YouTuber, much less a real booktuber, much less a real reader, much less maybe even a real person, if your video doesn't feature Lord Ganesha. And his video is absolutely fascinating. A lot of the books that he is going to hold up, you will definitely not have heard of them. A lot of the books that he's holding up are off the beaten path, very much off the beaten path for BookTube. So that's valuable right there for what he might say about them. Although he mentions that I am looking at everybody's 2026 and holiday TBRs and judging them. I mentioned the other day that I'm watching all these videos and I'm judging them in silence. So far I am not judging them on camera, although I'll make an exception for the Literary Buffet. No, his list was wonderful. Although there were moments, I call them riff-raff reading Renaissance moments, where I looked at what he was saying and my jaw just dropped. That he hasn't read Dr. Faustus by Thomas Mann. That he hasn't read the Aeneid. And one of the jaw-dropping moments was not he hasn't read. It was a totally different art form, because he mentions Pushkin's play Boris Godunov. And when he's talking about the play that he's holding up on camera, he says, I think it was made into an opera. And because I have sat in the audience in New York for that opera many, many times, I spat at the screen like, "What? You haven't even listened to the opera?" But I know it was all in good fun, and not everybody can get to everything. How many times do I do a video or do a live stream where you people are bombarding me with things and I haven't read them? Okay, it's not often, but still. You're going to love, if you don't know his channel, you're going to love it. And the dog blissfully sleeping next to him is the cherry on top. So I'll leave a link to all of these people down below. And that brings us to the me section of this video. And the me section started out happy. It started out with happy news. An iPhone. To replace my Android phone that doesn't want to do anything. It's an inch away from breaking at all times. Every single time I wanted to do something, I have to shut the phone off and then wait and then repower it and just hope that it will be in a better mood. So I decided finally to bite the bullet and get an iPhone and just replace it. And it came. It came very promptly. I think that Amazon likes to reward you for high ticket purchases by making sure. I think they think if we make this frictionless and also please you with how fast you get it, you might make another high ticket purchase. Because I can't help but notice that the piddling little stuff that I order takes forever to get here. But I got the phone and I thought, okay, well, you know what you need to do. You need to fuss around with it, right? You get any new phone, you need to fuss around with it. I need to get rid of the bloatware. Move all of the non-deletable apps to one junk folder and put it away somewhere where I'm never going to see it. Go to the App Store and download a lot of the stuff that I do use. Make sure that it's all up to date. Make sure that it's just a touch for me to get to it. Maybe load some books on it. And also, the first thought that I had, you have to move the SIM card, right? There's a SIM card door. You have to move the SIM card out of this phone and put it in this phone, so that this is a phone at all times, so it can be used to make phone calls. The one thing this thing does is make phone calls without arguing. And then I was messaging back and forth with a certain little hedgehog, and he pointed out to me that I bet your phone doesn't have a SIM card. And he is entirely right. There is no SIM card tray on this. Apparently it's done in something called eSIM. Lowercase e, capital S, capital I, capital M. And the minute that I heard that, oh, there's an easy, really convenient electronic version of swapping out your SIM card. You just need an eSIM. The minute I heard that, I thought, okay, so what this means is that no one, literally no one on Earth is going to be able to make that work. So you have, in fact, brought a pig in a poke. You've bought a phone that works in every other way, but it won't be a phone. You won't be able to make a phone call when you're outside of the own Wi-Fi router here. If I'm out and about, I won't be able to make a phone call or get any new emails or anything like that. Ever. That it simply will never be possible with this device. But I thought, don't be pessimistic. Give it a try. So I called my service provider. And I was in a call park saying your business is really important to us for 40 minutes. And then I got a guy who was very nice and very helpful and could not do what I want. I don't really know how to do this. It doesn't seem to be working. So I'm going to get my supervisor. Just hold on another 40 minutes. And then the supervisor came on. Wondered why I was irritated. I could actually tell from his tone of voice that he wondered why I was irritated. When his own screen tells him perfectly well that I had been waiting on the phone for 2 hours. And he couldn't figure it out. He said, well, I'm going to get my supervisor. And he did. That supervisor said, I said, well, I'm glad you're on the phone. I hope you can figure this out. That supervisor started off by saying, I've been at this job a long time. There's nothing I haven't seen. Couldn't figure it out. We parted ways on the phone in abject defeat of how to make eSIM work on this phone. Just abject defeat. And that's where it ended. I actually told the third guy, well, I would love it if, I assume your supervisor is, I don't know, the head of the FCC or maybe the president of Paris or something like that, but or maybe we're going to refer this to the supernatural realms, but I literally don't have the time to wait another 40 minutes, so we're just going to admit defeat. This just isn't possible. And the third guy that I talked to give him the small amount of credit that was due, he did seem frustrated by that. I am pretty sure that this was the first time in his career that things just didn't work. They just didn't work. So I told him, well, I don't have time to be on hold for another 40 minutes. I don't have time for you to check this or that or the other thing. So I will call back on Monday to cancel my account, to stop doing business with you. Obviously, this is my new phone. I'm not going to use two phones, one for phone calls and one for everything else. I'm not going to do that. So since that doesn't work, and since I don't want to keep using this phone, I just won't have a phone. So very annoying at the end of the year. I should have known better. I shouldn't have tried it at all. Whenever anything happens like this, oh, well, we usually deliver your groceries to your door, but now we're going to try e-groceries. That is never going to work. No one involved in that procedure, even the people who implemented it, are going to know how that works. They simply aren't. They aren't going to know how that works. They aren't going to be able to make it work for anything, no matter how much they try. So I partially solved my problem. I got a new phone. And it will work just fine for phone calls and everything else when I am here in Wi-Fi. Here at Hyde Cottage. It's foolish to use public Wi-Fi. You're just inviting catastrophe to do that. So I will go, for years I had a phone that was like that. I had a phone where it wasn't connected to my actual phone account. So when I was out and about, I was out incommunicado. I couldn't check on new emails. I couldn't send emails. I couldn't get any phone calls or make any phone calls. I couldn't do anything like that. But everywhere else, it was just fine. So I've gone back to that because this doesn't have a SIM card tray. And naturally, that caused me a lot of annoyance, a large amount of annoyance. And I have been solving it in two ways. One way was that I told myself, okay, well, you can talk to your imaginary BookTube friends because that always picks up your spirits. And it has. Complaining about the Florida Skunk Ape has picked up my spirits. And the other way that I calmed myself down was with the sheep detectives, which has been working nonstop with me for days, but I really needed it now. A number of you have said for months now that I do not have a new movie obsession. I do, at the moment, have a movie obsession. It is a movie called The Sheep Detectives. And it's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I think I've been watching a screener over and over. I think it comes out early next year. So you may blank on the name. You ought to jot it down because you're going to love it. You are going to love it. It is so good. It is. First of all, it's absolutely funny. It's about a group of sheep that have to solve a murder, the murder of their shepherd. And it's just lucky for them that he's been reading the murder mysteries just to pass the time. It's very funny. It's very well done in terms of merging the visual effects with the live people, and it's also incredibly touching. There are two scenes, one in particular, where you would have to be made of stone not to have a gigantic lump in your throat. I did a lot more than a lump in the throat the first time I watched it. I am, as any of you know who have spent time here, I'm a sucker for a good ghost scene. I loved it. I think The Sheep Detectives is an absolute masterpiece. It's the type of movie that whole generations of families will watch and rewatch and love forever, but that will never even be considered for any kind of an award because it's good instead of edgy. Because it stars, CGI sheep instead of Timothy Chalamet, who's about as close as you can get to a CGI sheep. No, Leonardo DiCaprio grunting and moaning as a CGI bear tears his innards out. That gets an Oscar, but the Sheep Detectives will get nothing except love. It will be beloved. So that has been helping me quite a bit. It's been helping me quite a bit to restore my mental balance. Now, I am assuming that the eSIM debacle cannot continue tomorrow since tomorrow is Sunday. I'm assuming that no one will be around to continue that debacle. Not that there's any point, but I feel just stubborn enough to try another round, see if I get different people. It should be as simple as possible. This phone has a particular code in the settings. It's right there. The first guy was able to lead me right to it. It's right there. It is literally all they need. Is my old account number and that number for this phone. That's literally all they need. But it didn't work. One time, and then a second time, and then a third time, it didn't work. But I'm just stubborn enough to think that maybe it would work. I almost think that if I were on their side of the computer, I could make it work myself. We'll give it a try. I will keep you updated on the phone saga. But at least I have new technology, and at least it is not an Android. It's not any fault of this phone that my carrier cannot make my account work. This phone is a marvel. It has a huge amount of storage. It's not going to stop working on me or brick on me or argue with me like this thing did. It's not going to do any of those things. And also, I like the form factor. It's nice and square with these flat backs. This thing has these rounded edges, so you can't set it up on anything. It'll just slide. Whereas this is much like the iPad. It's just square all the way around. So there you go. There's a phone update for you. I am almost the proud owner of a new phone. It does everything except make phone calls. And this thing still does. So I'm not cut off from the world. It's just frustrating. That's all. So anyway, there you go. That is an Irish stew video for you. I don't think there'll be any other videos today. I don't know that my temper would really maintain it. Maybe a book report. But I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.